There are many videos on my feed जहाँ पर I can see that people are getting really emotional as they're watching the movie. Some people are saying that it is paid. I don't know. पर गुजरात में एक भाई साहब इतने ज़्यादा इमोशनल हो गए कि उन्होंने स्क्रीन पे अटैक कर दिया अक्षय खन्ना को औरंगज़ेब समझ के और फिर उन्हें पुलिस ने पकड़ लिया। तो वो औरंगज़ेब ने एक और ब्रेव हिंदू किंग को गिरा दिया। पर अभी मुझे डर सबसे ज़्यादा इस चीज़ का है कि ये जो इमोशनल नाज़ीज़ हैं, ये कहीं रास्ते में अक्षय खन्ना को देख के औरंगज़ेब समझ के कूट ना दें।
गणपति गजपति भूपति प्रजापति स्वर्ण रत्न श्रीपति अष्टप्रधान जागृता शस्त्र परंकिता रवालंका परमिता राजनिधि धुरंधर राजाधिराज महाराजाधिराज श्रीमद 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 श्री छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज की।
Before we go into the main topic, I just want to walk back to 2004 when Farhan Akhtar's movie Laksh came out. There's a scene in the movie Laksh where Preeti Zinta's character, who's a journalist, is sitting in an army hospital where an army personnel has died, and she had an interaction with him earlier. So she's distraught and she says something like, क्यों होती है ये जंग?
क्यों होती है जंग? क्यों मारे जाते हैं लोग इस तरह? कब समझेंगे लोग कि इंसान की मुसीबतों का इलाज जंग नहीं, अमन है, शांति है।
Just shut up! Just shut up! ये अमन और शांति पे लेक्चर देना तो कहीं हो जाओ। Get lost!
देखिए, आप गलत समझ रहे हैं।
तुमको अमन और शांति चाहिए, हमको भी अमन और शांति चाहिए। तो क्या करें? हाथ जोड़ के खड़े हो जाएं उनके सामने, थाली में सजा के अपना मुल्क हवाले कर दें उनके। अमन और शांति। कैप्टन अबीर सक्सेना को भी अमन और शांति चाहिए थी, पर वो तो नहीं गया था किसी के मुल्क पे हमला करने। हमला अबीर के मुल्क पे किया गया है। वो जिस सड़क, जिस जमीन पे मारा गया है, वो हिंदुस्तान की सड़क है, हिंदुस्तान की जमीन है। जाओ पहले अबीर सक्सेना की बॉडी को देखो, उसके बाद बात करना। जाओ देखो।
Well, I was 17 when this came out, and I too felt that there is this patriotic inevitability, that war comes out of necessity, that the lines are clearly drawn between the righteous and the reprehensible, the aggressor and the aggrieved. But over time, over the last 20 years, I have realized that wars do not happen in a vacuum, nor enmity is developed in a vacuum. They are cultivated, curated, choreographed, made out of history, ambition, fiction, and relentlessness of propaganda. In the movie Laksh, it is about an India-Pakistan war. It is about Kargil. And while Kargil in itself is the story of Pakistani aggression on India, the story of Kashmir is much more complex. However, this is not where I want to go in this. I wanted to talk about propaganda, especially after this recent movie Chaava has come out. But before I go to Chaava, I also want to kind of recommend this documentary called Only the Dead Can See the End of War. It's by Michael Ware. It is a brutal testament to this idea of war. So he's a former war correspondent where gets embedded with the American army in the invasion of Iraq, and he captures like the grotesqueness of the modern war. The documentary film refuses the neat dichotomies of heroism and villainy. It instead presents war as a contagion of violence, one that consumes not just the battlefield, but the minds of those who wage it as well. The camera stays on the dead eyes and bloodied street, on men who enter war as soldiers and emerge out of it as something unrecognizable. But perhaps the most unsettling part of the documentary is to realize that how war seduces you. Where Michael Weir confesses in the documentary to being drawn into this intoxication, to feeling this thrill of power that comes with proximity to destruction. Here, this war is not simply strategic or necessity. It is a spectacle and a self-perpetuating machine that is fueled by fear, ideology, and the primal instinct to dominate. In Laksh, the young soldier answers to Preeti Zinta's question with the certainty of someone who has been taught, not someone who has interrogated. What I mean to say is that if you listen to what he says, you will listen to what millions and millions of Indians would say about the many different conflicts, especially with Pakistan, that we have had. It is a taught understanding of things. It is not an self-interrogated understanding of things. The problem is, though, that wars are not just about soldiers or leaders. It is about all of us. It is about what we want to see in the world. It is about who controls information, who shares information, and who benefits from an uncritical acceptance of things. To ask why wars happen is to ask why entire generations are conditioned to see them as inevitable or righteous. And that question is far more unsettling than any answer a soldier can give. Now, kind of going to the movie Chaava. I have not seen the movie. I do not think that I will. I have the broad idea of what the movie is about, and I have seen clips that are doing rounds, clips not of the film but of the audience's reaction to the film, and the thing that I have been thinking about is what purpose does it serve? So every art has a message. Whether the artist wants it to have or not, it does. Even an apolitical piece of art, film, has a message, and the apolitical side of the message is that, hey, things are fine as is. You just focus on this specific conflict of the film and leave the world outside of it. You know, जैसे हम कहते हैं कि दिमाग घर पे छोड़ के आना. That is also a sort of escapism that teaches people to not think. And to teach people to not think is something that a group of people who are politicians or business leaders or whoever will really appreciate, right? Because अगर लोग खुद से ये घर में दिमाग छोड़ के बाहर निकलें तो दुनिया उनके सबके लिए कितनी सिंपल हो जाएगी. And then there are films like Chaava, Kashmir Files or Kerala Story that don't do that. They ask you to bring your brains with you, and then through the process of watching the film, they want you to rewire your own brain in a certain way that you look at the world in a certain type. कश्मीर स्टोरी के आने के पहले कश्मीरी पंडित्स के सिचुएशन के बारे में इंडियंस को पता नहीं था, ऐसा नहीं है. या छावा के आने से पहले औरंगज़ेब के बारे में लोगों को पता नहीं था. ब्रॉडली ऐसा भी नहीं है. बट to sit in the film theater and to watch that film happening in front of your eyes is an emotional journey that makes you feel much more strongly about whatever opinions you had about those things. Because Kashmir Files or Chaava does not really ask you to reconsider anything. It is not like Court, the 2015 film, highly recommend, or this documentary, the only way that can see the end of war, where through the process of watching the film you are challenged and you are asked to ask yourself questions, and in order of asking those questions and finding answers, something happens, something changes. These films don't do that. These films reinforce largely what you have been believing, in fact makes it even more real for you. And again, just like we talked about दिमाग घर पे छोड़ के आना, the question is who really benefits the most from these things. You can watch a Chaava, feel really angry at Aurangzeb. There are news news that I'm reading where people are attacking the screen when Aurangzeb is appearing. You can do that, and the question is, once you leave the theater, what exactly is the emotion that you're coming out with? Resolution to hua nahi. Aurangzeb was the king, and the thing went on. Even with Kashmir Files, there's no resolution. Right? It's not like Schindler's List, जहाँ पे end में you know that the war ended, that Germany largely came back, went back to normal, and things in Europe settled down. That is not the feeling that you come out after watching Kashmir Files or Chaava. So you come out with a certain amount of anger. And now this anger is with you as you are dealing with your day-to-day life. As you meet your car mechanic, your colleague, person who sells you sabzi, people you see on TV after it. And this unresolved anger, how does it shape your interactions with the people who you are supposed to feel angry at? Aurangzeb is dead. It's been more than 300 years. The Mughals are gone. There are Muslims in India, 20%. How many of them should be punished? Should we feel angry at because Aurangzeb did something? Even if I accept the movie Chaava or Kashmir Files on their basic premise कि भाई जो भी आपने बोला एक सब सच है, अब क्या करूँगा मैं उस feeling के साथ? And that is the question, that is what I'm really bothered by. And there is obviously a pandemic of such films that are being made, so many that I cannot even remember all the names. And propaganda नया नहीं है, propaganda होता आया है. 1930s में जर्मनी में फिल्म बनी Triumph of the Will, which is still celebrated for its technical prowess, but it was serving the purpose of the Nazis. Again, I hate to bring in Nazis into this discussion. So in the 80s and 90s in India, there was a lot of propaganda. Mele Sur Mera Tumhara is a propaganda. But the deeper interrogation of that propaganda has to be what it was serving. There is a brainless film like Amar Akbar Anthony, which is also propaganda, but what it exactly is asking you to do. And that is where these things, make you feel, at least make me feel really agitated. Because we are living in a world where there is a lot of anger and there is a lot of distrust. And with all that distrust, these things come out that only add to the distrust that you feel. According to Cambridge research scholars Shreya Iyer and Anand Srivastav, who analyzed effect of Hindu-Muslim riots on state government elections in 16 states between 1981 to 2001, if a riot occurs in the year preceding the election, it leads to a 5 to 7% increase in BJP's vote share. 81 से 84 में BJP नहीं थी, और 84 से early 90s तक BJP was not a big force, but they had state governments in MP and other places. So then Gareth Nelly's, Michael Weaver's, Stephen Rosenwick did a paper called Do Parties Matter for Ethnic Violence? Evidence from India. And that paper said that electing Congress in a constituency reduces the chance of ethnic strife by 32%, while electing BJP increases the chance by 10%. Analyzing state assembly races between 1980 to 2007, economist Sonia Bhalodra found that raising the share of Muslim politicians in state assemblies resulted in a sizable decline in the incidence of Hindu-Muslim riots. If Congress lost all elections, it narrowly won at the district level between 1960 and 2000, India would have experienced 11% more riots and 46% more casualties. According to the study published in 2016, an abridged version of the study was also published in Ideas for India. According to Iyer and Srivastav, the people that I talked about in the first place, in their 2015 paper published by IZA Institute of Labor Economics in Bonn, Germany, the most important implication of their work is that it provides a basis for the arguments that the majority identity party has a clear incentive to incite ethnic tensions. I don't want to say that everyone is banded together to make BJP win, because that's such a small thing. BJP is winning and they will keep winning, I guess. But what is the lasting value of a film like Chaava or Kashmir Files? How will we remember this film in 20 years? At the end of the day, I cannot critically analyze the film. I'm not a film critic. I promise you, I will not be watching these films, much like how I have not watched Kashmir Files. But the one thing that I do know is that we cultivate ourselves through the things that we see. And if we see either this or Animal and Kabir Singh around us, I do not know the kind of people we are cultivating. Today another news came out that the Ganga water contains high amount of sewage, as in fecal matter, and the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh is denying that to be the case. I don't know what are we trying to achieve by being a society that is actively trying to harm itself. Ethnic strife, having 20% of your population constantly under a certain kind of fear, does not make for a stable economy, if that is what some people want. Governments have the bully pulpit for propaganda, and all of them use it for their own benefits. And the question that we must ask is that this government that talks about development and so much, and this society and this community that keeps talking about development and being on par with XYZ and being a superpower, what do they really want? There is a story from partition where one of Nehru's colleague, Badruddin Tayyabji, calls him and tells him that the local Muslims in Delhi were being harrowed by some Hindu goons, and this is the Prime Minister. He found a rickety old pistol somewhere, and he put a shawl on him and went to that area near Connaught Place and pulled out his pistol when the Hindu gangs were trying to antagonize the Muslims living there. I don't expect India to be like that, but if there is something that you can take from this rambling that I had, it is that we have to be very, very careful about what we see and really try and examine what is happening around us. And dimag ghar pe chhod ke aana is probably not something that we can afford anymore. What then are we left with? We're left with a choice. We can continue consuming art as though it were a mirror, reflecting only what we wish to see, or we can interrogate it for what it is. It is a tool, a weapon, a construct with intentions and consequences. This latter part is uncomfortable. It requires a vigilance that strips away nostalgia and forces us to recognize that even the most stirring visuals, the most poetic refrains, are in service of something. The question remains, what, and more urgently, who benefits from all this?